Since we're on here already, let's just define what fracking is. So is anybody familiar with fracking already? Okay, I can't really see who's raising their hand, so I'll just go with it. Fracking is the shortened term of hydraulic fracturing, and it has been used in the USA since 1947, but recently it's seen a rise in use in the USA. The reason why fracking is becoming more popular is because conventional methods used to extract natural gas and oil from underground sources are now becoming futile, as most of the resources that can be accessed this way have been gathered already. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so here we have a comparison between conventional oil wells and unconventional oil wells. And the first one shows the older method of getting natural gas and oil from underground. So in these wells, you can see that the gray layers represent the shale rock beds. The yellow rock is a porous rock, for example, like sandstone or something. And in these porous rocks, oil and natural gas can escape into them because the rocks have low density. The shale in this picture is impermeable, so the natural gas and oil can't rise further up than the first shale rock bed. And this is called an anticlinal trap. Don't worry too much about the name because, yeah. So it's not possible for oil and gas to move around as they do in the sandstone. So the conventional drill drills through the shale rock bed and into the reservoir. Yeah. And in the second photo, unconventional fracking is shown. Since the shale rock bed is the only reservoir present, one must use a horizontal well to gather the natural oil and gas. As mentioned earlier, shale rock is impermeable, so it must be fractured in order to release the natural gas and oil it contains. Fracking is considered unconventional because it's relatively newer than the previous oil gathering methods. And the reason for this is that we have exhausted almost all of the natural reservoirs, but there's still a growing demand for energy and fuel. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so here is a diagram of fracking. Underground, there's natural gas and oil embedded in black shale rock, which was previously inaccessible. This is where fracking comes in. Fracking allows us to access these underground reserves of natural gas and oil, which is then sold and used as fuel and energy and can power us for years to come. The process, you have to click now. Yeah. A well bore is drilled through layers of sediment. Wait, Helena, can you click on the slide? Okay, well, okay, it's fine. A well bore is drilled through the layers of sediment. At 2,500 to 3,000 meters underground, a vertical hole is drilled. The vertical hole is at a point where horizontal drilling may begin. So if you recall in the last slide, that horizontal pipe in the shale rock bed, that's what it's talking about. Horizontal drilling occurs for about 1.5 kilometers, and the drill turns 90 degrees from the vertical orientation. This step occurs in the shale rock layer. Shale rock is a laminated sedimentary rock which is made up of compressed quartz, minerals, and silt. It is built up over millions of years. And the organic fossils, like the animals that got trapped underground, they release oil and natural gas, which is then left in the laminations in the shale rock. Shale is a mudstone, but it's distinguished from other mudstones because it is laminated and fissile. So a laminated rock is a rock which has many thin layers, and fissile means that it readily breaks along their laminations. So a perforating gun is then used to create 1-inch deep holes on either side of the casing along the 1.5 kilometer horizontal well. And you can see that in the bottom close-up picture with the red arrows. Yeah. A mixture of water and chemical additives, as well as clay and sand particles, is pumped into the well and with enough pressure to fracture the shale rock. So I'll also refer to that bottom picture. And the pressure will crack the rock layers and allow the trapped oil and gas to flow in with the fluid into the well and back up to the surface. The chemical additives are usually grouped into 3 categories. Acid erodes the rock and breaks down unwanted particles. Slick water is like an additive that makes the water slippery, and it's basically to make it have less friction in the machine. And the last group is disinfectant for preventing bacterial growth. And the reason that they have this is because, keep in mind, fracking is like it takes a few months, the whole process. Clay and sand are added to the mixture to prop open the cracks in the shale rock, so that even if pressure is not being applied, the gas and oil can flow through the cracks. And the last step is that gas and oil flow from the cracks into the well and back to the surface. There are also retention ponds, which you can see in the diagram on, like, in the left. And these are used to dispose of fracturing material. This fluid is really dangerous for animals as well as humans, because as it comes back up to the surface, it picks up radioactive contaminants. And it already contains really harmful chemicals from the 3 groups before. And they are known to be carcinogenic, and fracking companies don't really reveal what these chemicals are, so it's probably worse than that as well. If this used fluid contaminates local water supply, it could be deadly for the local population, not only of animals, but also the humans. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. Okay, so how do people argue in favor of fracking? The first is that it improves air quality. And I had a source here. One second. I'll put it in the chat. Okay. So this argument is not really valid because the whole process of fracking creates a bunch of pollution in the air. And fracking drills require a lot of energy. So you can check out that link. And that site is basically biased towards fracking. So yeah. And what I would say to this argument is that injection-induced fault reactivation and seismic activity outside pressurized zones also occurs. So even though it improves air quality, there's stuff going on underground which creates a huge imbalance. And even though you can like dispose of the water and like just forget about it, in the long term, when that comes back around, what is all that water gonna do? It's really scary to think about. And the second argument that people who argue in favor of fracking is that it creates a historically low energy cost. Since fracking has allowed us to access lots and lots of natural gas that we couldn't access with conventional methods before, fracking companies are getting a lot of product, and they're able to profit off of it a lot. And this creates it's giving the supply to the great demand that we couldn't provide before. But this is only a short-term solution. In the long run, we should be focusing on using renewable sources of energy like wind power. And since fracking is going to create a longer detriment, it should be we shouldn't be focusing on that right now, because we're gonna have to pay for the consequences in the future. And we can discuss this further later, but yeah. Increased jobs for Americans is the third argument that I saw. And this is my thought. You get an increased risk of having companies bailed out because of higher investment in the business. So the people who are working for fracking, they don't want this business to get shut down, right? Because it's their livelihood. But if this is the case, if you are keeping up with current events, Trump has recently rolled back a bunch of environmental protection acts, and there's nothing really stopping him from doing that. So I think that we have to start giving more power to our environmental protection agency, because otherwise people who are in power can just take advantage of this. Yeah, you can go to the next slide. This is a quote I found, and it says, "The US is becoming the undisputed leader of oil and gas production worldwide." And this is pretty dangerous, because if we have another president like Trump, like, people are gonna start not focusing on the environment and more about, oh yeah, US is #1, oil production, woo, like, yeah. So that's pretty bad. Next slide. Fracking is easily profitable because of what I stated before. Like, we have a bunch of new sources for natural gas. It's replacing conventional methods because we've exhausted all of our resources for conventional methods already, which is also very bad. And it's a short-term solution, and it creates more harm in the long run. So I'm just reiterating points from earlier. Oh, and this is also a link if you want to see the agencies who support fracking. And like, this can be used if you want to protest them.